Hi, today I want to talk about endurance blocks. And what I mean by endurance blocks is a period of time where you string together 3 or 4 consecutive days of back-to-back steady zone 2 type riding, endurance riding, where the rides are longer and calmer than your normal ride. And the idea is to basically take a bit of time out of your normal routine to increase the volume of your riding so that you build and add to your normal training routine. So why do this? It's something I recommend quite a lot for the people I work with. And the reason being that if we're not pros, most of us are having to fit our fitness and our fitness goals, i.e. trying to get ready for a sportif or a challenge or whatever it might be in the summer, around a busy life. We've got work, we've got school, we might have a family, or any combination of the three. And cycling has to take its place in and around that busy life, which means there's a limit to the amount of time we can ride our bike, sadly. And when you're people in that situation, myself included, you've got, maybe you can get up to about 8 hours a week or 10 hours a week or maybe even 12, but you quickly get to a limit. And when you're at that limit, you can change the sort of the pace of the riding or the type of sessions you do, but invariably you can't make it anymore. You're stuck. So you sort of plateau, and then the volume that you can do and the overall amount you can do in a 6-month period or a year period is pretty well fixed. The other thing about riding in that type of way is that actually a lot of our riding is probably going to be made up of short rides, 1 to 2 hours long, and it's going to be quite hard at times. We may be doing Zwift rides and Zwift races during the week, or a chain gang in the summer. Our weekend rides, one of them might be a group ride where it's quite staccato and we're chasing hard in the wheels at some times and we're sat in the wheels at other times. And so the riding we do is predominantly quite high intensity and very low intensity, where we're sat in the wheels freewheeling and stuff like that. And the trouble with that type of riding is it doesn't really stress and develop the endurance base systems and mechanisms in that body which build an endurance ability and actually an ability to support high intensity riding. So our training is biased towards one part of the training we need to do, and it misses out the other part. So endurance blocks do two things for me. They give us a break from our normal routine. They allow us to increase the volume of our riding, which is great because, quite simply put, the more we can ride our bikes, the fitter we become. And the trouble is that is generally true, and the complexity comes with fitting it in around life and the type of ride to do. But ultimately, if you did 20 hours a week, you would be fitter than if you did 10 hours a week. And, it's as simple as that. So if we can add to the volume that we do over a given year, over a given 6-month period, then we will be a little bit fitter. So I see endurance blocks as a way of enhancing our ability to increase the volume. The other thing they do is they give us the opportunity to work on that side of the system which we neglect with our normal, busy, fast-paced routine. And that is the zone 2 aerobic fitness type of riding. So when you do an endurance block, my recommendation is to do your 3 or 4 days of riding at this zone 2 pace, at your zone 2 pace. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So how do you do it? Well, I always base them around a weekend. So I either take a Friday off work or a Monday off work, or both if I'm really lucky, and put together 3 or 4 days. I use them to create a little bit of a break in my schedule. So I don't necessarily go out with the group. I will plot 3 rides, sometimes rides on roads that I don't know. So I'm literally trying to turn my little endurance block into an adventure. If we're going away for the weekend, I will ride half the way and then maybe my wife picks me up. So I'm sort of trying to get free time out of the weekend as well. So that the idea is that you make them special occasions. So you've got your 3 or 4 days riding. How you ride the bike is very important. Try and ride them at a steady endurance pace. Now that endurance pace is one you can hold a conversation at. So you're not going too hard that you're out of breath all the time, but it's not easy. You're not freewheeling it. There is tension, there's pressure on the pedals, and you can sort of feel the chain being tight. But you're not battering. And this is incredibly important when you come to the rises. So in your normal weekly riding, chasing chain gangs, whatever it might be, chasing groups, that's probably always, everyone goes really hard up the climbs and you get out of breath and you freewheel down the other side. That is the exact opposite of the way you should ride your endurance blocks. The whole point about this is to do work that we're not normally used to doing. And so when you come to your rises, you back off and you ride up them at the same sort of effort level as you were riding on the flat. So your actual road speed drops quite dramatically, and it will definitely be a lot slower than when you're chasing the wheels in the groups. But that is the point, because when you get to the top of it, you get over the top and you keep pedaling, and unless it's a really steep descent, you keep pedaling down, and when you get to the flat, you keep the pressure on the pedals. That is how to ride an endurance ride. And if you think about it, what you're trying to do is make the ride smoother. So the power band is more in a smaller range, whereas if you're out in a chain gang type ride, you're going really hard and you're freewheeling, really hard freewheeling, and the gap's there. What I want to do is get you to ride like that, because that is when you are using all of your available time to keep the pressure on the pedals. The other thing you've got to do is think about your fueling, because we're going to be asking you to ride longer than you normally do. So if you're quite fit, I will, suggesting 3 or 4 hours a day. If you're new to cycling and you're building up your fitness for the first time, 1 to 2 hours, even 2 to 3 hours. But so it's relative to your own fitness level. But by definition, the 3 or 4 day block is going to add more volume than you're normally used to doing. That means you need to eat more than you're normally used to eating. So on the longer rides, let's assume you're doing 3 hours, start eating straight away. I tend to take real food to start with. I'll have a banana to start with, and maybe a wrap and some peanut butter. Then I'll move on to sports nutrition towards the end, and maybe have a gel if I sort of run out in the last half hour. But I don't start eating gels all the time. Drinks, I will have carbohydrate drink in one bottle and water in another. Again, it gives me a little bit of flexibility, so I've got some energy and I've got some hydration. And again, if it's a 3 or 4 hour ride and it's quite hot, I'll stop at a garage and refill up. So, you're definitely eating and drinking more than you're used to doing. Now, that's important for that actual ride you'll do, but it's also important for the next day. Because if you come home from your ride depleted, the chances are you're not going to be able to replenish all your carbohydrate stores, your glycogen stores, ready for the next day's riding. So these consecutive days, they put a cumulative load on the body, and you need to fuel for that. Now, we want that cumulative load because that is where the fitness gains come from, but it is definitely the case that you need to eat more in these type of blocks than you do if you're just doing a Tuesday ride and a Thursday ride and one ride on a Saturday. So you ride smoothly, you ride for longer than you normally do, you ride at a pace that you can maintain, and you fuel well, and when you get home, you fuel your recovery. So maybe take a recovery drink or eat some protein and carbs pretty quickly after getting home. And that's it. And the beauty about all this is that if you can do this 3 or 4 times a year, it puts a break into your schedule. You actually get the opportunity to think about cycling in a different way. It absolutely adds a useful amount of volume to your riding, and that will increase your overall fitness. And it stimulates and develops a part of your riding that your normal time-crunched, fast-paced routine won't allow you to do. So I think it's a win-win-win, because you get so many benefits from this. And for me, it just gives me another reason to find ways to ride the bike in places that I haven't ridden the bike before. And I get a lot of pleasure from that. So fitness and pleasure. What more do you want?